Hey everyone, did anyone else miss their summer prune last year? Well, fear not, as in today's video I'm going to show you how to get your apple tree back into shape for this growing year. Let's get to it. It's the middle of winter here, despite the beautiful sunshine and lovely bird songs, and that's a great time to get your apple tree pruned as it's dormant. I'm going to be bringing you in up close and personal so you can see exactly how and where I'm going to be making these cuts. Summer pruning on apple trees needs to be done just when the leaves have set, around the end of summer. And last year other projects in the garden took priority, so unfortunately the summer prune got missed on these apple trees. However, this gives me a great opportunity to show you what to do in this situation and how to get back into that summer pruning cycle. So let's start off with this tree. As you can see down here, we've started to develop this sort of short stubby spur network. But you can see this is this year's growth. It should have been cut back in the summer, but unfortunately got missed. So what I'm going to be doing is bringing these down to 3 nodes or buds and to an outward growth. So we're creating that short stubby network. So there's a node there, there and there and there. So that's a 4 node system. And what's going to happen is this will regrow during the year and get to about 1.5 feet worth of growth, and then I'm going to come in again in the summer this year and take it right down to there. So then this becomes the apex bud. So all of the energy that would have been going to that long growth is now concentrated on this bud, and then that will cause that bud to fatten up, similar to these sort of buds. And those sort of fat buds will produce flowers the following year, which will then be pollinated and grow into fruit. So that's the system that we're going for today. Taking these sort of shoots back. So we've got this short little stubby network. So when you do have apples, it's a strong system. It's not going to bow. If it was something like that, it's going to bow down. So I'm going to take that right back to a single node there, because once again it is going to regrow, and then we can cut it back to this sort of height so it stays nice and close. Same again here. I mean, potentially I could get an apple off that. You can see it's quite a fat bud, but I'm not too keen on this sort of bowingness. Aesthetically it can look quite nice when a whole weeping tree is like that. However, it's not going to last too long, and is very prone to diseases and infections and things. So same again in here. I'm just going to take off any dead bits as well that I see working through. But here's another long shoot, bring it right down, and here is 2 nodes. So roughly between 1 and 5 nodes I'll bring it to, because once again it's going to regrow. And we're going to cut it back in the summer of this year, so then all of the energy can then go into that bud to produce a flower bud rather than continuous leafy growth, as everything on this tree that is new growth is leafy growth. So we want to cut that back to stimulate fruiting growth, which will be the flower buds, which then pollinated and turn into fruit. So just bringing these sort of things back in, and like I say, coming to an outward growth. So an outward growth is anything that's growing away from the trunk, because if that node there was growing this way, like my secateurs, then it's going to become very congested in here, and we're not going to have a nice airflow or not a lot of sunlight to ripen the fruit. So we always want to cut to outward growth. Same again on here. There's actually a node there which I don't want to cut to. it's a little bit close, but also long term it's just going to grow into there. So if I cut to here where there's a node, then I know it's going to grow outward. So it's just a case of getting your eye in, working your way across the tree. So here I could cut to one of these nodes. However, if I do so, you've got this angle which I'm not too keen on, as that's going to have more growth off of that, and you've got a join there and a join there, because this is the previous year's growth. So what I'm actually going to do is get rid of that entirely and come back. I'm going to come back to this one. That one was a nice length, but it's going to grow and cross this way. This one is going to fill in this gap here, so I'm cutting it back to there. Same again on here. You could equally come up to here, but once again I quite like a nice controlled dense cluster. And something that you can do while you're doing this is also looking at your spur networks. If your tree has loads of apples but they're all relatively small, diseased, congested, then this is the sort of time also to be thinning those spur networks out, so there is space for your apples to grow, and also the nutrients available for your apples to grow to a good size. See here, actually I'm not too happy with that. I'm going to take that off entirely. More air and light can go to there as well now. So moving up the tree, we've got this kind of peculiar growth. Now, that is actually a flower bud there, so that will be an apple. However, I'm not too sure on the strength of that branch, and that peculiar growth isn't going to do anything good, so I prefer to sacrifice those sort of ones, so more energy goes to the existing apples that are in a good place, because that will always have the potential to regrow in a straight and in a better way. So here I'm actually going to leave that. That's already terminated. There's not new growth on that. It's not a long whippy growth, and it's also got two fat buds there, so I'm going to leave that one, as that's going to get some fruit on there. Coming up here, once again you've already got some nice buds there, so I'm going to take this one back here, so we'll actually have a fruit here, and then not this year but potentially next year we'll have a fruit here, bearing in mind we're winter of 2025, so I imagine summer of 2026 we would have some fruit on this piece. Once again, irregular growth, just take that off completely. So we've got a nice bud there which will produce a fruit, and then here that's a leaf bud, so once again that's going to shoot a lot of new growth here. Potentially two shoots might come off from here. I'm going to cut them right back to this similar sort of position, so then all of the rest of the energy that the tree would usually use for more leaf growth will go into here. So once you've watched this video, I'd recommend going back and watching one of my summer pruning videos, as I have another one that's up close and personal like this, and an older one on an older tree, which also explains the summer pruning method. So here they're crossing, take those bits off, leave one good one. Although that's upward growth, I'm going to take it off because I prefer that bit of growth. Bit of a peculiar growth there and there. The more you do this sort of thing, the more you get your eye in and the more you understand how your tree works. And you can also predict where you're going to be pruning in the summer and in the later years. It's all about training your tree and shaping it to the space that you have and the type of tree that you want. See, that's a really nice bud there, but that is a piece of growth that I just cannot be happy with. If I was a commercial fruit grower, absolutely I'd leave that. I'd get some fruit off there, but in a garden where I'm just looking to get really nice fruit but also have a structurally sound tree that's going to last a long time and look nice, then I'm going to be taking those sort of bits off. Once again, nice strong shoot there and there. Let me bring my ladder across so you can have a little look. Better vantage. Right, there we are. There's another nice bud there. That's just a bit dead. So then we'll get a shoot off there, potentially 2 or 3, cut back to here, and then we'll start developing that spur network there. Going to come back in a bit harder there. Yep. So here we've got this kind of lateral growth going to this upward growth. Once again, I'm not too happy with that sort of angle, because if I cut again, you know, up to 5 nodes there, then you're going to get another growth off there. So I'm going to cut that off, because you've got 2 cuts here. There's an old cut here and a cut there. I know there's a bud here as well which might shoot off, but I'm going to put my energy, or my tree's energy, into that. 1 clean cut is better than 2. Taking off anything dead that we don't want. Most of it that's dead you can snap off. If you can't, then just cut it. Happy with that. That looks like that's going to be quite a nice bud there. So here, just bring the camera up. This piece in the middle I'm going to take out, because we've got apples coming here and here, you can see by the fat buds. And if I leave that in, it's just going to get quite congested, especially the size of the apples that grow on this sort of tree. So, and actually that makes me want to bring this one down. Yep, happy with that. Once again, it's bringing these whippy growths down. Clean sharp pair of secateurs as well, and the blade is well, I try to every cut, the blade is against the bit you want to keep, so that if you do it this way round, sometimes it can leave it a little bit crushed. I don't know if you can see that. So it kind of crushes it a bit, whereas that way it's a cleaner cut. So I do that, and I try to get an angle, so when that heals over, if rain does, or when rain does hit that, it can just run off, rather than a flat cut where rain can sit on and then eventually rot it. So this isn't looking too good. Even though that's alive, there's a lot of dead round here. I'm going to take that off. Don't like that at all. The buds are quite thin and weak. They were flower buds, and I think they are going to be fruit, but I don't think they're going to come of anything. You'll get the flowers and the fruit, but potentially they're going to be the ones that will drop off. That might just be the position of where they were, and with all the rest of the leaves it blocks it out, but I'm going to take that out because I can see that wasn't successful last year. Same again here, bit of dead, just want to remove that. And that was a bit of dieback, so where I obviously cut, it didn't heal over properly, so I'll cut that back down to there. So it died back to there. But in fact, yeah, we'll bring that. No, I'm not a fan of that at all. Bring that right down. Let that be the new apex bud, which is the end bud. This one's just crossing the centre here. Take that completely out, as I want to encourage some sort of growth from here to come out rather than sideways growth like that. Now what you can't see is I'm just taking some of the top bits off, just up here. Bringing these in. I'm going to take that off completely. There we are. Now a lot of these cuts that I'm making are quite simple because the tree has been well looked after. You can see it's got a nice little spur network down here, and it's been trained. Whereas if you've got an overgrown tree that you've just moved into a new house, or one that you've uncovered at the back of your garden that you haven't done for many years, then a winter prune may entail a lot more than just a pair of secateurs. You may need a saw or a pair of loppers to bring down the size of it and thin it out. But remember, you can do all this in stages. You don't have to do it all in one big hit, because it's going to be quite a shock to the tree. So here, complete inward growth, and also you can see it's rubbing on that branch there, so I'm going to take that out entirely. No, I'm not. I'm going to cut it to there, because we do have a bit of a spur network going on here, and potential I could get a fruit in there. Once again, nice little network starting to form here. This one can go to here, this one in there. I'm going to take that one in, take that one into there. So don't be afraid to take off any buds that will produce apples, because all of that energy that would have gone to that apple will then go to other parts of the tree and producing new buds for apples. Good little tip if you are unsure when cutting, just cut it back to a point and then stand back, assess it, have a little look. You can always cut more off at a later stage. So here, I probably want a branch coming this way, there's not really anything here. Double cut there, I know there's a bud there, that would be a new shoot, but there's also going to be shoots off there, so once again, I prefer one clean cut than two there. So I'm just working my way to the top of the tree. I prefer to keep a lot of the spur networks lower down, easier to pick and monitor for me. But I also understand the joy of climbing a tree and picking apples. However, it's very hard to get the apples without damaging the spur networks, because they are very brittle, or damaging future buds. Right, this one's going to come off completely for me, otherwise I'll have to have 3 open wounds here like that, and I'm just not a fan of that. That's a lot of areas that could be infected. It's all going to brown over like that, and then some shoots are going to come off everywhere. It's going to leave a bad mark there, so that's a lot better for me. tricky because there's quite a lot of decision making need to be done when you're doing this sort of thing. You've got to think how the tree is looking now, how's it going to look in the summer when it has the fruit and the leaves on it, and then also how you want the tree to look 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years into the future. So there is a lot of decision making. That's why it doesn't all need to be done in one big hit. It's all about slow incremental progress in a garden. Here we're going to go there, otherwise we would have had a lot of cuts there, and you can already see it's not doing too well. And what you can do is cut them all down to the size that you think, similar to here, and then make a decision that actually these are quite close, so potentially a thin out in the middle may be needed. Like that. Well, I couldn't have picked a better day for it, considering we're in first week of January and we've had a lot of rain recently. This is rather wonderful. So here we've got these inward growths, so just take those off completely. These sort of side shoots, we've got 2 here. I'll make a decision on one to keep. I'm going to keep that lower one, looks a little bit better, and bring it back in. More of this inward growth that we don't want. Take those bits off. Slowly moving around the tree now. Not too sure what's going on here, so I'm going to get rid of that crossing growth. So it's about creating nice open space in the middle, but also open spaces between the branches and where the apples will develop. All in all, this really does help the tree develop and grow better fruits. Not only is the winter a good time to do this because the tree is dormant, if you did this sort of thing while the tree's actively growing, it's just going to send off loads of new shoots. A lot of people think they're water shoots, but actually it's just leafy growth. And that's a survival reaction that it will do, because it will stop putting growth into fruit and aka offspring and put it back into survival, because the tree wants to survive, rather than shooting off apples with seeds in, which is their offspring. So similar to if a deer or grazing animal came round and started taking some of these branches off in the wild, ripping off the leaves and things, you'll see from that section that the tree puts off a lot more growth to rebalance where it has been damaged. And that's effectively what we're doing if we prune it at the wrong time of year. You see a little bit of a deformity on this shoot here, so I'm going to take that off. Eventually, when you get the hang of it, a lot of it is just gut feeling. Working out how to balance the tree. Taking off any of the branches that look a little bit diseased. Or are potentially dying. Any that are crossing or rubbing. Here's a peculiar one. Take that off as well. So coming down to here, that's a damaged branch there. So what I'm going to do with this damaged one, have a little closer look. So it looks like the squirrels have peeled some of this back, and this swelling is a reaction of the tree trying to heal it. And I mean, you can see it's not doing too well, that bit. So I am going to cut that completely off and just cut it here to see what's happening. So you can see this browning will eventually spread throughout the branch, so I will take that back. So there's going to be some fruit on here. I'm going to leave that, see how the fruit is, assess that for this year in the summer, see if we're getting any deformed fruit or it's looking nice and healthy. If it's all good, then I can leave it as it is, but if not, then the following winter I can take that branch off there. So if you're someone that likes taking notes, you know, this is great garden journaling. That's something you can do. Write down any deformities you see on your trees, or things you just want to bear in mind for the next time you prune it. Another reason I like keeping the fruit low is so it can be assessed throughout the year. You know, make sure there's no pests and diseases on there. Make sure it's getting enough sunlight and there's not too much leaf coverage, because you can do the odd clippings of leaves around the apples just to let the light get in there. This whole branch is in the way, really. So take that whole thing out. I think my aim with pruning is as little cuts as possible. You know, if there is 2 cuts similar to that, then just make it 1 cut. So then it's less energy and bits for the tree to heal it, and less chance for infections or unwanted abnormal growth. There's quite a cluster here of previous cuts and or new growth, so I'm just going to come in closer on the ladder to get a better vantage point to see what's best. You may have noticed put some mesh around the base of these tree pits. The squirrels, rabbits, deer keep digging around there when we put new mulch down there, so that just helps protect that a little bit. Once again, abnormal growth. Okay, so with that one here, cut it right there and take that all off. And same again here. So then we can get something off of here, and then also we'll have something here. Just wanted you to see in there that I'm taking that out to just thin out that section there, really. Here we've got some swelling from previous cuts, so ordinarily that can be kept and that'll be absolutely fine, but in this scenario we've already got quite a few branches there, so I prefer to get rid of these gnarly bits, as once again that will eventually fill up with water, you get rot down there, and then the rot will go down into this branch. So yeah, we can take those off. Another piece there which I'm going to take off as well. Probably could have done with a pair of loppers, really. Hopefully you can kind of see how the tree's developing and how we're shaping it and thinning it all out. This is quite a good example of all these on this little spur network here. Same with down here. They're all going to be fruits. It's another nice example. All of these buds here. So here you could cut that off there, but once again it's going to be in the same problem as last time, or this time that we just saw, where it grows into that branch. So see, there's a little something there, so hopefully we'll get a bit of growth off there. Now, I don't want to encourage downward growth, but here I could form a fruit, and that's what would be quite nice, rather than allowing elongated growth growing down, because eventually it will curve back up to the light. It's just to create that little stub, similar to here, something like that. There we go, that's a downward. Bit of downward growth and then a stub to a fruit bud. That'd be quite nice there. Here this is coming and crossing over that one, so you can choose to get rid of that one or that one. I will get rid of the one that's crossing over here and allow this one the space and the light. Inward growth again to come out. Taking these bits. So I could have cut back to here on this one, but then you've got to think the growth's going to come out and join over here. Really, we've got quite a bit of space here, so that is going to do a nice job of filling in that gap. So I'm going to keep this little cluster here just to see how it develops. All of these are leaf shoots, so there's going to be a lot of leaf and foliage here in the summer, but I'm going to bring that back in and see which ones I can develop into fruiting buds, and then I can take out which ones haven't developed into fruiting buds. So it just gives me a few more options there, rather than taking these two out and just leaving these two. It's going to give me a few more options, leaving them all available for new growth and development. Now that one is inward growth. However, it has terminated. There is a bud there which will be a flower and hopefully a fruit. So I'm just going to leave that one for now. It's not doing any harm, it's not in anyone's way, and it doesn't really encroach on the inward space. So I'd just like to show that there are exceptions. It's not one blanket rule that all inward growth must be cut off. It's what suits you and your tree in your situation. So here you might go, well, hang on a minute, I thought you were taking them all quite short and stubby to create a short stubby network. There's not actually any branches in this space, so my short and stubby network I want to create will be somewhere up here. If I cut it back to here, there's going to be a bit of a hole in the tree and a bit of a weight distribution as well. There's quite a lot of thick branches over there. So I'm going to leave this one long and develop this to mature into these sort of thicker, woodier branches. So that's why I've left that one longer than the others. Similar with these two. Let's think how we're going to develop them. And also it gives me the option, you know, there's no harm in next winter, if I decide that these aren't how I want them, I can bring them right back down. And that's it. Nice airy, open tree with a lot of space in between the branches. Thick, strong branches with little stubby networks available for new growth of flower buds to turn into fruit. And also there's the potential for new growth to fill in areas of the tree that I want to balance out. Things like this. But very happy with that, retaining the spur networks that I already have within here. And it's in a good shape, ready for this year's growth. So as you can probably see, I've got a few more trees to do the prune on. And this year I'm going to make sure I dedicate the time in the summer to prune these apple trees. That's it for this video. Hope you found it useful and entertaining. Thank you to everyone who interacts with this video. By liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing, you're really helping the channel grow and helping more people being aware of this sort of content. So thank you. I've got a dedicated apple pruning playlist on my channel, so if you're interested in more pruning techniques, do check that one out. And I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.